Hey everyone, welcome back to Pretty Creepy. Today we're going to be reading stories about people who have died and lived to tell what they saw. I got this idea from Holty Vincent, that was their username. They commented on one of my podcast episodes saying I should do an episode on stories about people who have died and came back to tell their experiences. And I thought that was an amazing idea. This is such a scary topic, honestly. Like, no one truly knows what happens when we die. I'm not religious, but I personally believe we go somewhere better after this. At least that's what I like to tell myself, because I am terrified of death. More so the unknown. I don't like not knowing things. Anyway, let's get into these stories. Grab a drink, a snack, a blankie, and your favorite stuffed animal, and let's get creeped out. I attempted to take my life a few years ago by hanging myself. I had no pulse when the police arrived, but nobody is really sure how long I was up there. I was resuscitated in the ambulance, but was in a coma for a little under 2 weeks. Anyway, all I remember is a feeling similar to general anesthesia once I jumped off the table, but for the first 5 seconds before it went black, I was in total panic and had a total change of heart from the confidence in my decision to end it seconds before. And then it was just nothing, like a deep sleep. And when I finally awoke from the coma, it was like finally reaching the surface of a pool after diving too deep. I was in the same panic that I was immediately after I jumped from my table, like I just blinked instead of being knocked out for 2 weeks. So to answer your question, I don't remember anything at all. It was like being in a deep, dreamless sleep. Perhaps if I regained consciousness immediately after being resuscitated, I'd remember something more interesting. But yeah, nothing is about all I can offer. My former football coach had a heart attack on the field and was dead for 15 minutes. We were talking to him, and someone finally asked what it was like to be dead. He replied with saying that he remembers a whole lot of nothing. He didn't have amnesia or anything. He did say it was the most peaceful moment of his life. Going off this, I think it's like Inception, where you build the world that you inhabit. When I was 8, I learned how to fix small engines. That being said, my dad had an old flathead Briggs & Stratton 5.5 HP engine that didn't work. He also had a riding lawnmower that had no engine nor blades. He gave me the task of getting the engine running, and I could put it on the riding lawnmower and have fun whenever. Well, that day, I tore apart the motor and had it running by bedtime. The next day, we had the thing mounted and riding around. Flash forward a few weeks, me and my older sister were riding when my shoelace got caught on the back of the spindle. It pulled me off and was dragging me. My sister stopped and went in reverse, which caused her to go right onto me. The chain and chain wheel caught my lower right back, ripping my skin open and pulling my large and small intestine out, severing my right lung, breaking my spine in 2 places, and shredding my right kidney. I felt the thing roll onto me, then everything went black. Couldn't see, move, speak, or anything. No pain as well. All I remember was the blackness. After my father got my heart beating again, I remember laying there in pain. Also remember feeling my back and short of breath. I felt what I still believe as my stomach in my hand while I was feeling my back. Once I was in the ambulance, everything went blank, except this time I saw myself laying there and the medics shocking me. I felt a hard pull, and I was back in myself. Few minutes later, I was on a table with strangers in white all around me. I remember them in a panic, then standing next to my grandmother who passed when I was 3. She told me she was my Nana. We were there watching them jolt my heart with tiny round paddles. She kept telling me it was okay. They called my death time at 6:06 p.m. Then all of a sudden, I wake up and I'm all fixed and stapled up. My parents told me I had died 3 times. The first for 5 minutes. The second was a little more than 12 minutes. But the last time was astonishing to the doctors. My heart stopped beating for 20 minutes. My parents made them continue jolting my heart. They told me the doctor kept telling them that I was going to have a 98% chance of being brain dead. I'm 25 years old and am healthy as ever. I'm fully capable of walking as well. I was stabbed in the stomach with a fillet knife by my schizophrenic uncle when I was 15 years old. I remember freaking out, lying on the floor hyperventilating while I was bleeding out. I had tried to crawl up from my basement to phone 911, but I was so weak, and every time I moved, I started bleeding harder. I remember passing out and having the sensation like I was leaving a dark room and moving outside into the sun. I stopped panicking, and this feeling of pure contentment settled over me. I was floating over a garden where all of the plants were giving off light, and I could see a huge amorphous shape above me that was made up of every color in existence, including colors I have never seen before and couldn't possibly describe. The shape seemed familiar, like I was part of it, and it was beckoning me and filling me with pure ecstasy and understanding as I looked at it. Then a man who looked an awful lot like Dream from the Sandman comics, which I was obsessed with at the time, walked over to me through the garden and told me that I couldn't go home yet, that it wasn't time. I started weeping, but I was filled with a feeling of understanding, like I knew that I had to go back despite not wanting to. The man had tears streaming down his face, and he took my hand and led me back to my body, which was in an ambulance. My older brother had found me and called 911. 4 years later, I experienced a kind of weak flashback replay of the feeling I had while looking at the giant shape in the sky while I was on psilocybin mushrooms. It felt like I was intimately connected to every aspect of the universe, and that all things that could be known were understood intuitively in that state, like an all-encompassing answer to some divine question, but I couldn't put it into words or symbols of any sort. It was all so obvious in that moment. I felt omniscient and omnipresent, but it was a shadow of the feeling I had during my near-death experience. I didn't have any religion in my upbringing, and I have never been inclined to believe in any sort of organized spirituality, but those two experiences were so vivid and otherworldly that they have convinced me that there are dimensions to existence that are beyond our current ability to grasp in a tangible scientific way. It felt like I had pressed my face up against some sort of veil and looked through a pinhole at something beyond imagining. People have told me that it was all just the simple product of brain chemistry and that there is nothing spooky about my experience. But I honestly have trouble taking them seriously because none of them have actually experienced anything like it. I challenge anyone to have an experience like this and not come away highly skeptical about our current scientific worldview. There seems to be this undercurrent of feeling among some that we are rapidly approaching a comprehensive and objective view of reality, that science is in its twilight years and we are just tying up some loose ends, but my experience has led me to believe that the cosmos is much more mysterious than anyone is giving it credit for. My aunt had an experience when she was 18. She always suffered from chronic seizures that made her pass out. One day, she had one while no one was around. She was later found by my grandmother. The doctors luckily arrived in time to resuscitate her. She explained that she was in the brightest, most peaceful hallway. She wandered aimlessly through it until she found a massive door closed on one end. She told my grandmother that she tried as hard as she could to open the door. Tapping, slamming, even kicking it would not allow the door to break free. She looked back to see the back of the corridor gone, replaced with an emergency room. She was lying on a stretcher while multiple nurses and doctors were frantically working to revive her. She gave up on the door, turned around, and led for the surgery room. She inevitably reached the room and re-entered her body. She passed away at the age of 42, about 9 months ago. Heart failure after multiple seizures. She left behind 2 young daughters and a husband. We like to think that the door opened for her. Growing up, my father used to tell me of an experience he had while having open heart surgery. The doctors had to stop his heart for about 20 or 30 minutes while they inserted a mechanical valve into his heart. At the time, he was in his early 20s and was involved in a lot of bad activity that he says he is ashamed of now. Anyway, while my dad was dead, he said that he was in a very dark place, and as he wandered around, he started running into very scary people who were deformed and screaming at him. He ran for his life into a corner and hid. and just before the people got to him, he looked up and saw his deceased grandmother reach her hand down and grab him. The next thing my dad remembered, he was back in the hospital. He's convinced he was temporarily in hell. I don't know if this was just a dream state or something, but I've never seen my dad so convinced in his life. It was enough for him to turn his life around and turn to religion, and more importantly, come back to his family that he had left behind. Not me, but a friend of mine overdosed one day while doing some stuff with his friend. The friend hadn't done anything yet, so he wasn't imagining all of the signs of death on this guy. No pulse, cold skin, blue lips. My friend told me that those few moments he was considered dead, he saw nothing but white. Everything around him was bright white, and in the distance was a dark shadowed tree. He then saw a woman, also dark and shadowed, so he wasn't able to see her face. But her presence made him happy. She held out her hand to him, and for a while he debated whether or not he should go with her. He decided not to, and she simply walked away. Then he woke up again. Before that event, he defined himself as Catholic, but was never really religious. Afterwards, he turned his life around and started devoting himself to helping others. When I was 12, I drowned in the Gulf of Mexico. I was out pretty far from my family, and the current picked up into a rip. I had always been a very strong swimmer, and I knew what to do: swim parallel. On this occasion, I wore myself out and started to sink beneath the water. I remember struggling to breathe. Then I took a big breath of water and everything stopped. The only way I can describe it is by saying it was being at zero. I wasn't scared or excited. It was just zero. I was looking through the water and I blacked out. During that time, my mother was swimming out to me. She'd been a surfer all her life, and she pulled me to shore and gave me CPR until I coughed up water. There was something eerily comforting about being at zero. My sister was shot while she was walking her dogs in our small town in Alaska. The bullet ricocheted, piercing her bowel in 9 places. Even though we had one of the best Rhodes Scholar docs in the north at our ER, and the only flight out of town was miraculously minutes away from takeoff and held up to fly her to Anchorage, she bled out and died on the operating room table. She knows because she vividly remembers everything the surgeon said as she laid dead on the table. What she told me later is remarkable. She recalls drifting up and into a very bright light. She was no longer in pain and felt compelled to travel into the brilliance. It led to an amazing river. Seriously, the look on her face when she describes this place helps me realize that radiant, endless joy is not just a possibility, but an eventuality. She describes playing in a river that consisted of pure knowledge. Anything she ever wanted to know was at her fingertips. As she played in this amazing river, she could sense figures on the distant shore. They were our people, she explained, our family, our animals, all waiting patiently for her to finish playing in the river and wade towards them on the shore. Though she was not ready to leave the marvelous river, she knew without being told that they would wait patiently and joyfully. But she never made it to the shore. As she was playing, an amazing thing happened. Seriously, people, if you could see the look on her face when she describes this next part, you would laugh for pure joy. A being approached her. She did not know what it was, except to describe it as pure, unconditional love. It radiated love. It pulsed love. And all things diminished before the radiance of that love. The next part makes me chuckle a bit, even though that seems out of place. She said it spoke to her and said that she had to go back, that it wasn't her time. She said, like a little kid, "But I don't want to." When she recounts this experience, she emphasizes that to be in proximity of that being is all there is. She describes it as a completion, a peace, a welcoming. To leave was incomprehensible, but to decline was also incomprehensible. She felt infused with a purpose. Very, very, very reluctantly, she returned to life. She is amazing. Life is what we are here to do, she explains. But after, sweet, benevolent, all-encompassing love. A man came and spoke to one of my classes this semester about his near-death experience, and it gave me great comfort, so I wanted to share it here. He was kayaking with a friend and ended up flipping his and being sucked under by the current. He was sucked into a pipe underwater and struggled to get out, almost made it, and was sucked back in. He passed out and his friend saw his lifeless body being tossed down the river. This is how he described his experience in the moments he was unconscious. He was in a dark place, almost like a cave, only the walls were soft and velvety. At the end of this cave was a beautiful kaleidoscope of colors. He made it sound similar to a stained glass window. And on the other side of this colored glass, dark figures were passing by. He said that all sense of time was lost, and it felt like his wife and kids would come join him at any minute. He said it was the most comforting and peaceful feeling he has ever experienced. He said that he had the strong sense that God wanted him and everyone there so badly, and that you must have to do something pretty terrible to go to hell because he wasn't the greatest of guys before this. His friend was able to catch up to his body and revive him, and he said he now feels a stronger connection with everyone and is grateful to have had this experience. Hope this was calming to some of you like it was to me. So most of these stories are pretty calming and comforting. Like, they definitely have me believing there is something more after this. I saw someone on Reddit say that maybe the people who see nothing are the ones that didn't truly die, or if there is a God, they did not want them to see what's on the other side yet. But I want to know what you think. Do you think we go somewhere awesome after this? Or do you believe after death it's just nothingness? I would love to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment and go ahead and give me a follow if you like spooky content. I'm so grateful that someone left a comment with today's episode idea, and I would love to hear more ideas if y'all have any. Anyways, that's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe it inspired you in some way to live life to the fullest. I'll talk to y'all next time.